Oh, you wonder what the book is on the thumbnail? It's an Italian grammar book that I absolutely do not understand. Hi guys, it's Glory here, a fashion blogger who accidentally became an English blogger. Well, today I'm making a highly requested video from you guys. How did I learn English? As some of you may know, I am 100% Chinese, and my Chinese is probably better than yours. Just a little bit of background, I was born and raised in China, and I also finished high school in China. I didn't come to Canada until I was 19 years old, so I definitely didn't grow up in an English-speaking environment. And if I can learn, you can learn. Today I want to share with you my experience and some tips on how to master English. Let's start with my personal experience, aka story time. I started studying English when I was in elementary school, just like a lot of you. And I didn't go to international schools or anything, it was just the typical English education in China, and you know what that means. In fact, my English was not good at all even until I was 15 years old. My pronunciation was terrible, I couldn't understand a lot of the things I read or heard, and I could barely formulate sentences on my own. But around the same time, I had a sudden interest in singing English songs, and I really wanted to learn the lyrics. I started by just searching for the translation of the lyrics online and just imitating what the singers were doing. You are beautiful in every single way. Words can bring you down. Oh no, so don't you bring me down today. Okay. Well, my interest in singing sort of led me to join a private spoken English class with a couple of my friends. I remember vividly we would gather at my friend's place after school, and this tutor from Chicago would come to teach us how to pronounce words correctly, how to have a basic conversation, and at the end of each class he would play some fun crosswords to help us learn vocabulary. My English improved tremendously in just a few months, especially my spoken English, mainly because I got to practice with a native speaker and I was confident enough to speak the language. Fast forward a few months, I got into high school. I went to Shenzhen Foreign Languages School, but again, it wasn't an international school. We still learned English the traditional way. But each week we had one class in which we got to learn from a teacher who's a native speaker. But it was one teacher versus 40 students in the class. So let's be real, you could barely get any chance to practice. One day, the teacher mentioned in class that he wanted to learn Chinese, and I knew I had to grab the chance. I was nervous as hell, but I approached him after class and offered to teach him Chinese. So for the next half a year, I got an extra hour each week to practice with them one-on-one, and that definitely helped a lot. At the same time, I was also listening to English songs, watching English movies and TV series, and reading English books, including things like Gossip Girl and Twilight. Please don't judge me. All of these were done outside of my regular English classes. In fact, I couldn't care less about learning English the traditional way. I didn't give a crap about studying grammar or trying to memorize vocabularies mechanically. These things are important, but it's just not how I learn. I want to immerse myself in the language. I want to feel the language. I want to love the language. At that point, English wasn't a subject to me. It was an interest. Coincidentally, I became quite good at English as a subject even though it was never my intention. I just seemed to know the answers to questions on the English test without being able to explain why grammatically. It was just an intuitive feeling, if you know what I mean. So you could say I was pretty good at English by then. So okay, great! My English was good before I went abroad, so everything should be all easy, breezy, right? Not quite. As I mentioned before, I came to Canada when I was 19 years old for university. I attended the University of Toronto. If you know anything about U of T, it's pretty damn hardcore academic. And what did I pick as my major? Drama. I did not know what I was getting myself into. First of all, I was the only non-native speaker in my class, but it shouldn't be a problem, right? Because my English was good. And I also thought I would just be acting. Yeah, sure. Except it was Shakespeare. And I couldn't understand a single word on my script because it was all Shakespeare in English. It wasn't all like that, but you get the idea. I was in for a shock. As it turned out, the drama program at U of T is heavily focused on literature and the history of theater. We had to read a shitload of research papers and textbooks and write tons and tons of essays. But as painful as it was, my reading and writing skills definitely improved a lot, as well as my bullshitting skills. So I'm pretty thankful for that. My university experience was quite an interesting one, especially the acting part, but that's a video for another day. Anyway, I would say I was 99% fluent in English after university. I didn't really encounter any problem in using the language, except for occasionally not knowing some new vocabularies, but that's something I need to continue working on, maybe throughout a lifetime. Don't get me wrong, I still catch myself making mistakes sometimes, but my point is, I think in English now. There's no mental translation process when I speak. And I continue to consume a lot of books and videos in English. I even make videos in English, not because I want to practice per se, although it is important, otherwise you would just get rusty. I do this because learning is a lifetime process. You don't suddenly tell yourself you've known enough now. You never do. I want to absorb as much knowledge as I can, regardless of what language it's in. If I could speak French, I would be consuming French content for God's sake. Mais je ne parle pas français. Merde. But yeah, that's my experience. I know everyone learns differently, so I just want to give you a few tips that could potentially help your learning process. Alright, my first tip for you is to find out why you want to learn English. Always start with why. That's also a lesson in life, by the way. If you look at my experience in learning English, the thing that sparked my initial interest was that I wanted to sing English songs. For you, it could be a completely different reason. It could be that you want to make friends with people from different countries. It could be that you want to be able to understand movies and videos in English without having to look at subtitles. Or it could just be that you really want to do well on your English exams and get into a good university. Whatever your reasons are, finding that spark could really help with your learning. Because if you really like something, it'll be so much easier to learn it. However, I need to point out that even though I had the very strong interest in learning English, it still took me years upon years of constant practice, which leads me to my second point. Practice is the single most important thing when it comes to learning a language, or learning anything really. You need to practice speaking English. There's just no way around it. None. Zero. Nada. And let's just face it, the most effective way is to practice with native speakers. Of course, you could try practicing with your friends, but you'll probably just both end up speaking Chinese. I know, because I tried. A lot of people have told me that they're not in an English-speaking environment. Neither was I before I went abroad. But I seeked out an English tutor, I created the opportunity to practice with a native speaker one-on-one. If you're proactive, you can find ways to create that environment. For example, you could hire an English tutor like I did if you're ready to invest in it, or if you want to do it for free, you could try language exchange groups like those ones on meetup.com. The idea is similar to what I did with that teacher in my high school. I taught him Chinese, and in return he practiced English with me, except it will be in a group setting. A word of caution is that when you're talking to native speakers, don't feel like you're lesser than just because your English is not good enough. They are speaking their first language and you're speaking a second language. That's already one more language than most people can speak, so be proud of yourself. And always remember that we are all equal. Doesn't matter what race we are and what language we speak. Okay, some of you may ask me, what if I have nothing to say? If you want to always have something to say, you need to consume a whole lot. By consuming, of course, I mean consuming knowledge, not things. You know my whole channel is against mindless consumerism. As I've mentioned before, I'm still consuming a lot of content and knowledge in English, and I'll continue doing so. I don't think I'll ever stop. And I can tell you firsthand how beneficial it is to be able to consume knowledge in another language. You get a whole new point of view. It's never about the language, it's about what you can do with the language. My advice is to read as many books in English as possible, watch English movies and TV series. I'm actually against watching TV series because I think they are a time waster. But if it's for the purpose of learning English, then you get a yes from me. But don't try to fool anyone, okay? You can also watch online videos in English. I think starting with the subject that you're already interested in could be really helpful. For example, if you're into styling, you can watch videos like the ones made by yours truly. At the end of the day, English is just a means of communication. It's a language, and language can be acquired. English and Chinese are the two most spoken languages in the world. We are lucky that we already speak Chinese, which is way harder to learn. If you put in the work, English is honestly not that difficult. And remember, practice is the key. That's the general rule if you want to be good at anything. And on top of that, consume. Never stop learning. Cool? Alright, thank you for listening to a fashion blogger talk about how to learn English. Next week, I will be bringing you a styling video, so stay tuned and I'll see you guys next week.